Hello and welcome back to Courtside. I'm Andrew Cohen, joined alongside by Sam Posman, Mike Randall. How you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Yeah, happy to get back into it.
All right, we're gonna recap what's happened in the NFL offseason so far. What do we want to start off with?
The inevitable.
The inevitable?
You just trying to make me be the one to say it?
No, you choose. I'm just giving you guys the option.
I mean, Tom Brady's either the shittiest father on the planet or just is an absolute football psychopath, but he's back.
I'm not that surprised, but I was surprised at how quickly he came back. It was like 40 days. Surprised he's back with Tampa. That also surprised me. But, like, was anybody really surprised? Because, like, the day after he announced the retirement, he had his, like, podcast. And Jim Gray started asking him about his plans. He's like, well, we'll see. You know, we'll feel it out. We'll spend some time with the family and reassess. And it's like, what? You just retired yesterday. So, I'm not surprised. But, again, the fact that it was so quickly and with Tampa is surprising.
I was surprised it was short. I think you were on this right when he retired. You said this might be a ploy to try to get out of Tampa.
That's exactly what it was.
For all we know, that's what it was, right? For it to be that short, he goes in, he retires, he tries to get out early, and then when he's unable to, ultimately he settles for being back with Tampa. But that would explain some of the rumors about him sniffing around San Francisco or the Dolphins. Mike McDaniel had to answer those questions earlier.
Yep.
Yeah, it felt weird with him not in the league. I like the fact that there's just always, when he's there, there's just a team that no matter how good they are, they're Super Bowl contenders.
It's great, especially in the NFC this year,
yeah.
where, like, you need it.
We were about to have one of the worst conferences I think I've ever seen in football history without him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the Brady story, too, was him meeting with the Glazers in Europe.
At Manchester United.
I wanted you to correct me on that specifically because I know how much you like the soccer stuff.
The Glazers, for the soccer fans, are like, you know how I talked about Stan Kroenke?
Yeah.
Same idea. They hate him.
But, like, he doesn't go there. If all he was thinking about was just whether he's coming back or not, like, he just makes a quick phone call and he's like, all right, I'm back. I think he went there and was probably like, I have some demands.
Or he sends a fax.
That's true.
I'm back.
Right, but if it wasn't that big of a deal, that's all he does. But if he has actual demands that he has to work out, that's why you go to speak with them in person before coming back. And I think maybe there was even like a last like, hey, I really like to not be here.
Yeah.
I really like to go to Miami, and they're like, no, you're under contract. So
I like to think that Ronaldo convinced him.
I love that video where Ronaldo point blank to his face the day before the announcement. You're finished, right? Tom's like, am I?
Am I?
I'll let you know.
Also, the big piece was that like I had in the back of my head, but then just kind of brushed it off as Gronk not re-signing with the Bucks right away, him not retiring.
Have we heard what he's doing? Did he?
No,
he hasn't made a movie yet.
I saw a video on Twitter that like someone in his home took with him at a party, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to leave Tom hanging."
No, like he's either playing with Tom Brady or he's retiring.
Yeah.
But the fact that he hadn't retired yet.
Are we getting the Julian Edelman comeback?
We are not.
You see that though?
I did see that video. Yeah.
Best way to get.
If he was coming back, he would have already been back. And also, like he's what, 36 now.
I don't know. He probably doesn't have any interest in OTAs.
Yeah.
Wait till after the draft.
I don't know. His knee was bone on bone. Like it's not. No, he's absolutely cooked. Like he's not the type of guy who is just going to retire because he got old. Like he had to get broken down. So. All right, Tampa wins the NFC this year. It's that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see what Philly does.
I will say, in all seriousness, their team is not as good as it was when he retired.
No,
the roster is not nearly as good.
It's not.
It's quite watered down.
The division's much worse.
The rest of the conference, besides the Rams, is worse. So
right.
I'm
not saying they're going to get to the Super Bowl this year. I'm saying they're going to be the first seed, and then we'll see.
They could be.
They're
absolutely right back in the.
Why would it not be the
title
Rams?
picture.
Explain this to me.
Rams have a tougher division.
Yeah, I guess.
Kyle Shanahan tends to get the best.
I think there's a good chance we have kind of right back to what we were last year in terms of the best teams remaining.
Yeah.
I think all of us saw that as being San Francisco, L.A., and Tampa, and I think that's probably what we're headed for again.
Yeah.
I don't think Dallas or Green Bay is going to be able to step up with the losses they've suffered this offseason. So.
No.
I mean, we knew if he came back, they'd be right back in the thick of the title picture, and they are. So
yeah.
Football-wise, it's not massive news, except that he just slides right back into being who he is. It's just, find it hilarious. Probably had to watch the kids for a day. It's like I'd rather have 300-pound men just pile drive me to the ground for the next 6 months.
Oh, boy.
Speaking of Florida, Tyreek Hill got traded.
That he did.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Mike?
You know, as a rather avid supporter of Patrick Mahomes, I wasn't too thrilled
I think there's a term for that.
with the transaction. What would the term be?
Bandwagon.
I think that's it.
I have been labeled a bandwagon since the time I entered the sports fandom realm. I am totally fine claiming that term.
If you weren't wearing a giant sweatshirt, it might actually have merit.
Yeah, that's what
I think-
loyalty looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Just cold, sturdy loyalty.
Respect.
Yeah. The Giants, LeBron, and Patrick Mahomes. I'm a real down in the dumps sports fan. Anyway, I think I said this to you guys at the time. Long-term team building wise, it was probably inevitable. It was not a bad move for Kansas City long term. It's kind of Belichickian in the terms if you get out a year too early, it's supposed to do a year too late. 4 years, $120 million for a 30-year-old receiver whose entire game depends on speed is really, really risky. That being said, the rest of the league has loaded up, seemingly, especially the AFC, seemingly with the idea of taking down Kansas City this year, particularly the Chargers and Denver. So it probably comes back to bite them this year. Obviously, they kind of preference it. They kind of mitigated the damage by signing Marcus Valdes-Scantling and Juju, but obviously that by no way replaces the production of one of the best deep threats and fastest players we've ever seen.
I mean, I would say if Patrick Mahomes is as good as everyone thinks he is, and he is that good, like, he has Travis Kelce, and then he has a bunch of fast receivers. He has NFL, like, Juju Smith-Schuster's a good slot guy. They have guys to catch the, like.
And they now have 2 first-round picks, and one of them, we can get into this later, could go Jameson Williams at Alabama, and that is the exact style player that can fill a Tyreek.
Would you want them to draft receiver?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
If they hold on to those first 2-round picks, I think it should be defensive back and a receiver.
This is going to sound stupid, but I never connected the dots that Kansas City's going to get all those picks. Like, I knew Kansas City was getting all those picks, but I didn't, like,
I think it's a great trade for them because
Tyreek
Hill, he might be a year or two away from not being the same guy.
Yep.
Right? Because when you're entirely reliant on your speed, right, that's going to go away.
And they do have McCole Hardman, so they don't.
Yep.
And Marcus Valdes-Scantling is not the caliber of receiver Tyreek Hill, but he still can stretch a defense, especially with a player like Mahomes. The problem with him, honestly, is injuries.
Yeah.
When he played for the Packers, they had a high volume number one aside from him, so he's not going to get as many looks, but he did a good job of taking the top off and at least being a threat. So I'm with you guys. I think it was a good move. I think Mahomes will respond fine. I don't think he gets exposed or anything by this move like some people have talked about.
Contract.
It's a terrible contract for a receiver.
It's
terrible.
From the Miami perspective, there's let's say Tua is not the guy, right? And it's going to take them another year or two to get the quarterback they can win with. By then, kind of screwed. Now, at the same time, though, you do have to like them being aggressive and trying to put the pieces around a guy who's not supposed to be anything more. Doesn't look like he'll be anything more than like an average, field general type guy.
I like the move for Miami.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot for a receiver. I think it's a lot of money for a receiver. Long term, in the last 1 or 2 years of that deal, maybe it doesn't work great. But the most important thing right now is if you look at the AFC, the caliber of quarterback you have to win is so immense that you either need to know you have that guy or you don't. And if you don't, you need to stockpile as many weapons as you can possibly get to try to get up in that vicinity of explosive offense. This kind of is 2 birds with 1 stone. You're going to find out. Now, I think all of us, and probably Miami, realize Tua is never going to be that caliber. But you're going to find out if with the right pieces he can compete at a high level. And if he can't, we talked about this in the last episode, the idea of building up a team and an offense and then inserting a young quarterback and allowing him to flourish in the way that Herbert was able to, the way that Mahomes has been able to, the way we think Trey Lance is going to be able to. So I think you kind of are able to do both. I'll probably get on this a little later, but I think that Tua ends up getting a little more exposed than what some people are saying Mahomes will. I think Mahomes is fine, but I think Tua...
Oh, no. Mahomes,
This is career-threatening or career... It could blow up to his career and he could be phenomenal, or it could be career-threatening for him. Because if it doesn't work now with Hill and Waddle and Parker and Gesicki.
Yeah.
They added a couple fast running backs. Added Teron Armstead and
No, it's like once you're in the best possible situation you can imagine a guy being in, if he doesn't succeed, then like you're kind of just done with him.
Yep, and it's a really good quarterback draft next year. So
Yeah.
I hate the trade. I'm just gonna say it. I think like Mike McDaniel's first year head coach. You're coming in. You're trying to like set your culture for the team, stuff like that. The Dolphins have been out kicking their coverage really for the last 2 or 3 years now, where I don't think they're like. How many 10-win seasons have they had? At least 2?
One or two.
Which, with that roster, is kind of like not expected. They just had a really good coach. Not worth keeping on, apparently. But I think when you're really trying to, I don't know if rebuild is the word, but improve your roster. And it's not like you're missing one piece. Like, there are holes throughout. I think I'd rather have my 5 draft picks.
I don't know. I think their roster now is better than I think we give it credit for. I think offensively now, I mean, their offensive line's much better. They brought in Chase Edmonds at running back. They have the receivers, Gesicki at tight end, solid. They have everything on offense. The only question is really quarterback at this point. And sure, the defense might be a little spotty, but you still have Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, right? So I think they're going to be a good team. The question is still about Tua. And also, Mike McDaniel's a first-year head coach. And by the way, he was an offensive coordinator that didn't call plays.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing to think about.
He was. The one thing with him, and this will be interesting, is you have the potential to mix in. It's going to be a West Coast style of offense, obviously, with Tua's capabilities. And we attribute a lot of it to Shanahan, but at the very least, McDaniels is there absorbing a lot of that, helping run a lot of that. So he brings in Mostert, right? He brings in Edmonds. Those are 2 very capable backs. I don't think they're stars in their own right. But this offense could get a lot more. It's going to get a lot more creative, a lot quicker. The running game, I think just by the design of it, will be a lot more dynamic. So potentially you have a much improved running game. You at least have a left tackle, regardless of what the rest of the offensive line looks like. And now you have probably the 2 fastest, most explosive players at the wideout position in the league, if not in the league, period, in Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I mean, they're almost clones of each other.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is I don't like it for Tyreek Hill either. Right? Like, the Chiefs were going to give him, 80, 90% of that contract? They weren't going to match it by any means. But, I mean.
Most likely.
Yeah.
You're top 5? You're probably 4 or 5 receiver in the league. And
I'd say top 3.
That's another day.
He's way up there, yeah.
He's between 3 and 5 on any given day. Yeah. To take money to be the number 1 paid guy feels like exclusively an ego thing. And to walk away from a Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid situation to a place where it's question marks in both those spots, I feel like to one extent, it's what more does he have to prove? Go get your money. But on the other hand, how can he walk into that situation and be like, yeah, I'm here to win? Like, if you were here to win, you wouldn't be here.
No, I agree. Like, that's part of the reason I do like it for the KC perspective. Like, I mean, I've obviously never been like a huge fan of Tyreek Hill, especially with the off the field stuff. But he's always felt like a guy where, because he has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, it makes him look a lot better than he is, and he's still good, no question.
I think that relationship worked both ways in a really impressive way.
It definitely did, but like, you need the quarterback, like the way he plays, being a guy to stretch the field. You need the quarterback to get it to you consistently, right? It's not just once a month you can bust off an 80-yard touchdown.
Yep.
Like, he was doing it. It felt like every other week.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things on Twitter. You know the video of Tim Tebow just throwing a duck when he steps into it.
Yep.
And it was like 2-0 when Tyreek Hill's 40 yards downfield.
Yeah, it's like Tyreek Hill hits the double move, is wide open down the sideline. Tua throws in the ground.
Yeah,
we'll see. But I think Miami might hang around your Patriots this year, Andrew.
I mean, they've been hanging around the Patriots.
They have been. I think they might jump them this year.
So the only thing, though, is the coaching change, right? If they still had Flores, no question, right? Because we know Flores gets the better of Belichick. It's been proven. But McDaniel, and he could be, and I'm not saying he's going to be a bad coach. I'm just saying you just don't know because he's new.
Yeah, absolutely.
So roster-wise, I think they have a better roster, but their quarterback isn't as good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
Speaking of wide receiver deals,
Davante Adams.
Transition.
Davante Adams.
There we go.
How's it going?
That was a good one.
All right, to the Raiders. The Raiders give up their first and second round pick in this year's draft, and they immediately sign him to a big 5-year contract extension, $141 million. That trade looks like a steal, by the way, after you see the Tyreek Hill one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, absolute
For the
steal.
compensation the Raiders had
For the
to give up,
compensation
yeah,
and the fact that you
absolutely.
know it's going to work.
Yeah.
Because Davante Adams is that guy. He has the connection to Derek Carr from college.
Yep. They're really tight, too.
Yeah.
Personally,
No,
they're really tight. Yeah.
That offense is loaded.
Yeah, because you
loaded.
slide him right in.
You
with
have
Waller and
Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
They have running backs, too. Josh Jacobs is good. They brought in Brandon Bolden. He's not bad.
I think they've
Brought
signed
the
like 2
fullback.
or 3 offensive linemen in free agency.
Is Drake? No.
Kenyon Drake?
He's
He
still
may
there,
be
right?
there. I think
so,
he's still
yeah.
there.
I don't think he's been on the move this offseason.
Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs, yeah. That team, I think before the Davante Adams trade, they were such an afterthought. Because even if
They
they were
were.
going to be better, maybe they could have beaten the Broncos and finished in third in the division, but you just weren't talking about them.
But that felt unlikely.
That felt
still
it felt
feels a
unlikely,
little to
but
me,
it was
but-
part of the reason was you're just not talking. The Broncos just got Russell Wilson.
My only
Yeah.
concern for them is their coach.
I mean, but why is he more of a concern than Nathaniel Hackett is for the Broncos?
No.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
See what I think is, and I don't want to this to be the first thing we can talk about Adams first, but I think it's really interesting that McDaniels, I forgot the personnel guy's name from the Patriots, that go to the Raiders and the first thing they do is trade for a star receiver.
Yeah.
Both McDaniels did that.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Great pickup, Sam.
it's good.
Not for nothing.
So I got to give a shout out to my guy Colin Coward again, but he made this point on the herd, and I thought it was an interesting one, and I kind of tend to agree with it, having given it a little bit of thought. This was part of the reason why, while I think long term it's not a bad move for Kansas City to move off Hill, I also don't think it's a bad move for Miami to bring in an expensive receiver, where 5 years ago, it felt like the receiver was kind of the icing on the cake, right? It was kind of a luxury to have a great guy. Now it feels like, with the level of quarterback play and the level of offense you have in the league right now, if you don't have a guy, to go to in critical situations, with Tyreek Hill has definitely been, with Davante Adams has definitely been, but not only that, a guy to get you cheap points, right? To bust a 45-yard run to set up a field goal, to take the top of the defense, get you a 70-yard touchdown. Just over the course of a season, having easy offense, can get you in rhythm, it can break open games, it shifts momentum, but those methodical 10, 12, 13-play drives are really hard to sustain, even in today's league with all the offensive rules. It's still hard to sustain offense like that against NFL-level defenses, so having a playmaker that can so quickly move you down the field, position you to get points, where I think wide receiver has quickly become a much, much more critical position than it was. Obviously, you got the quarterback, probably still going to be left tackle, but right after that, I'm going for the star receiver right now just because of the ability for it to make the life of my quarterback and the entire offensive game so much easier if you have a game breaker.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Raiders offense right now, and you take quarterback out of it, you just look at the weapons and the O-line, you can make an argument they have the best offense in the division. Absolutely.
They're up there, yeah.
That division's loaded.
Yep.
Right, but think about it. You have to pick your poison with Davante Adams, Waller, or Renfrow. Right? And you're going to leave at least one guy open.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
And you have guys that they complement each other very well.
Exactly.
Davante, and to an extent Waller, too. He's really fast at tight end. But Davante not only can be a possession guy, can get you critical, but he can take the top off the defense like I just mentioned. Waller is your classic, right, just weapon at tight end, right? He's going to mismatch problem. He can go deep. And then Renfrow, I mean, think about having to defend with the worry of Davante Adams and Waller getting over the top of you, and then it's 3rd and 3, and when Renfrow's hitting that whip route underneath, that is so hard to stop.
Yep.
When you have that many weapons and a quarterback who, not the greatest talent in the world, but he's a distributor. He's going to get the ball out to everybody. Everyone's going to be in the right spot.
And his guys love him.
Yeah.
They love him, and they'll play for him. They'll play for him hard, the way Davante's former quarterback may not have been able to galvanize the troops.
Let's talk about the Packers side of this.
Yeah.
It's a bad look.
It's the biggest.
It's not great.
It's the biggest FU to Aaron Rodgers.
I think it's a big FU to everyone. I mean, the Packers offered to match the deal. This is not an overpay for a player. This is They matched the deal to the penny, and he said, I do not want to play for the Green Bay Packers anymore.
Now, I'd rather live in Vegas than Green Bay.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, but
I don't
also
think
like,
every human
but you also have to keep in mind like he spent his entire career in Green Bay to this point. That's a hard that's a hard decision to make, to leave one place after you've been there for a while and you've had success there.
Not too long ago, did Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams post the Last Dance Jordan and Pippen photo to their Instagram stories.
Yeah, but they did that, then went out to Jimmy Garoppolo at home in a playoff game.
That's right.
That's about as bad a look as you can get there.
That play where Rodgers has Lazard wide open in the middle. That's the only receiver on their team now. Him and Randall Cobb, I guess. Like
one of the other takeaways I had from this deal, because it came out, it was reported, because my initial reaction was like, oh my God, they just screwed over Aaron. And almost immediately it came out that Aaron operated in setting up his deal knowing Davante was likely never to play in a Packers uniform again. How disingenuous is that guy?
Oh my
He
God.
has made an unbelievable stink. For the last 2 years, he's held up his team. He's held up the league. He's made it all about him and about how could you wound me by trading up to get a quarterback and not getting me weapons and all yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. And then they don't get him any weapons. They go out early. And then his one weapon, probably the best weapon in the league, walks out the door, and he's like, "Nah, it's okay. Just as long as you give me enough money, I'll come back."
Yeah.
All that other stuff about like respect and support. No, I need the money. I've lost so much respect for him in the last 2 years. I didn't think I could lose more, but everything he seemed to be fighting for was just crap.
Yeah.
Speaking of quarterbacks we've lost respect for.
Is that you transitioning?
That was a transition to Deshaun Watson.
I guess we're done.
We don't have to be done. I just took that as a fantastic opportunity.
I don't know.
Did you have anything else?
I mean, I was just gonna say, part of me really wanted it to be a big middle finger to Rodgers. Mm-hmm. Oh, you want to sign this big deal?
Did too. That would have been awesome.
We have to make cuts somewhere.
Yeah.
I wonder if Adams wanted out part of the reason just that it's been a whole dramatic situation there for it's. I
think it was a compounding factor. I think he wanted to be in Vegas with Carr. I think
Rodgers doesn't make it easy to play with him.
And he was sick of the management. I think he was sick of how management handled his situation, too.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a top-flight wide receiver who was played at Hall of Fame caliber for a few years, and they weren't setting him up long-term. They were going to tag. They tagged him.
And let's even say, they offered him the same contract. He could, in his mind, just be in a year, Rodgers might leave.
I think that's a great point. I forgot about that, but you're absolutely right. That's a 5-year contract. He's probably looking at it hey, by year 3, I don't know what I'm getting. And this goes back. This is another person who's been in the Green Bay, in the room with Love, who doesn't seem to have any faith that he's the future of the Packers, which we now know he's not. But
I mean, to be fair, even if he was, Rodgers is still there.
Yeah.
I think that has such less to do with it because you still have to get to that point. One quick thing I will say also, you mentioned the whole Jordan Love thing. I love the fact that when...
Love.
What? The whole Love thing.
Yeah, you said you loved the fact.
Oh, nice.
Gotcha.
I love the fact that when Belichick drafts Garoppolo, Brady just goes in a whole nother tear. And they draft Jordan Love, and Rodgers starts crying.
Puts his tail between his legs in the
Exactly, and doesn't really respond.
Yes, Brady responded on the field. But he did go crying to Daddy about getting
he went
Jimmy
right
G
above,
traded.
Right
traded
over Bill Belichick's
right
head.
after. He went
But also, if you're winning, fine. If you're still winning at a high level, fine. We'll trade the guy.
Yeah.
If you lose to Jimmy Garoppolo in the playoffs every year,
you
either get killed there or you get blown or you lose at home, with a chance to win the game at the end. I'm sorry, I can't Sure, you've been great for a while, and you still put up great numbers, but when it comes to winning time, you don't do it.
I have a question for the group.
All right.
Would the Packers, I know it's their tradition to not have an owner, but if they had an owner and there was just more organization top down, do you think the situation gets better sorted out?
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
And the dynamic would be if Aaron had someone he really had to answer to, would it matter? But I don't know.
He might be gone already.
Yeah, maybe. Right?
If the owner gets
sick of him.
the 3 most important people in the organization, or at least the three kind of like figures. It's the owner, it's the coach and / GM, and the quarterback.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the power structure.
Yeah.
So if you have a real if two of those guys have a real problem with the third one, you're in trouble.
Right, and you already got a coach fired, so you can't pull that card anymore.
Yep.
The one thing is that quarterbacks have risen, I think, kind of the level of NBA stars. And
Yeah.
we see NBA stars act out like this all the time. There's nothing the ownership can do about it because they just hold all the cards in terms of performance. And if we're being realistic, we're still talking about him failing at almost the highest level, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's getting you so much farther than anyone else is likely to get you.
Yeah.
Definitely farther than anyone else you can acquire to replace him is going to get you. So you're still kind of trapped. There's a reason he was able to trap Green Bay the way he did. It's because he is really freaking good at quarterback.
Yes. All right. We have the other quarterback. Well, there's a couple other quarterback moves, but
Now we'll move to less than respectful guy there.
Yeah.
So.
Sam.
Yeah. It's just so stupid.
It's just so slimy.
It's just, it's just not right. Like,
We're going to name the situation
Yeah.
here?
Deshaun Watson to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Then gets a boatload of money.
So, for those who have not stayed up to date or don't know the details, Deshaun Watson just got traded from the Texans to the Browns for 3 first-round picks. What was it? I think a second and a fourth or something.
Yeah.
Immediately signs a 5-year, $230 million, fully guaranteed $1 million deal, which is the most guaranteed money in NFL history by, I think, $100 million. It's quite a bit. And he was traded from Houston in part because he asked out, but also because he has 22 civil lawsuits pending against him for allegations of sexual assault, misconduct, and harassment pending from massages over the last few years.
and I think a few more just popped up as well.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
He has been tried in front of a grand jury on 10 different accounts of this behavior. Both grand juries moved not to indict, so there's no more criminal action coming against Watson. As soon as that news dropped over the last couple of weeks, the trade market heated up. And because he had a no-trade clause in his contract, he had complete power over where he went. The Browns, the Saints, the Falcons, and a couple other teams were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, so to speak. He had seemingly narrowed it down to his hometown Falcons or the Saints at the last second. Does a complete 180 and heads to Cleveland. We quickly find out that's because Cleveland threw this boatload of money at him. As a part of that deal, the first year of his contract, the base salary is only $1 million, and that is to protect him against fines based on a possible suspension that will be handed down by the league office once his civil cases are tried and resolved. So it's an absolute mess of a situation off the field. In the middle of it is this potentially generational player at the most critical position in the sport. But I think we can all agree, and it should be said now, it's an absolute slap in the face to women who support the NFL, women in general in our society, that we're letting a serial abuser claim the most money in the sport because he can sling a football around.
But the NFL did just include women in the Rooney Rule, so that makes up for it.
On the press conference where they were introducing him was
awful.
It was awful. And they had, of course, they put out the statement, we did a full investigation. It's like, oh, did you interview the women? Huh? Oh, no?
Or the opposing lawyer? Nobody.
That's the thing.
Even if you're
I've never seen sports journalists pull no punches like that before.
They went after him.
They went after him. It was great.
Deservingly went after him.
And
Deservingly went after him. And, I mean, it's just slimy all around. Deshaun was, I mean, it was like, it's hard to, like, articulate it, but he was asked point blank at one point, like, are you thinking about seeking help or doing anything to kind of reclamate your image? And he's like, why would I have to do that? I've never done any, I never did anything. I've never disrespected women. Like, hard claims about his character that, according to a very significant amount of women, are just blatantly false. And then the Browns are backing him the whole way through it.
What's the name of the Browns GM?
Andrew Berry.
Andrew Berry.
He looked terrible at that press conference.
Really bad.
He looked really bad.
Like, he looked like bad.
Yeah.
He looked bad at various points, but it ended with them asking him point blank, "Do you believe in Deshaun's innocence?" And he some roundabout answer about, "Well, we believe in him."
No, that was the entire time. Anytime something came up around that, it's like, we believe in Deshaun the person. We've done once we became comfortable with Deshaun the person, it was an easy decision. And it's like, and then they would ask like, well, when did that happen? He's like, I can't necessarily pinpoint it.
We did a thorough investigation, but didn't ask anyone who's in real.
Right. We only got one side.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. It's ugly. It's as ugly a situation the NFL's had off the field since the whole Ray Rice, Greg Hardy year.
And they continue to just have a terrible track record.
They're having a hard time. I mean, the punishment he stands to face suspension wise, and this is a whole nother topic we could spend a whole show on, but it opens him up to I think a 6 or an 8 game for conduct detrimental, where Calvin really bets pocket change basically on a couple games he's not playing in. He's suspended for a year. Yeah. Josh Gordon's been suspended 6 years for smoking.
Tom Brady for deflated footballs.
Is going to get.
And actually, it wasn't even deflated footballs; it was for not cooperating. That's why he got suspended.
He's going to get nearly as many games as Deshaun Watson gets for all of this disgusting behavior off the field. So, it's one of the biggest moves, blockbuster. It's probably the biggest blockbuster move I've seen since I've been closely following the NFL.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, this is a Hall of Fame and. Like, if you have to separate the art from the artist, right, which I don't think is right, but in terms of him, the football player, this is absolutely a Hall of Fame caliber player. He's only played, 4 years in the league. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, has led the league in passing, has been to the divisional round of the playoffs with the Texans, which is no easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Had a great college career. So for a player like that at that position, at the quarterback position, to become available and get moved, has never happened before.
Yep.
Just blatantly has never happened before. With the closest we've come to it was Russell Wilson a few weeks ago. So it's a massive, massive transaction, and for the storyline to just be under this dark cloud of discussing lines is something else.
We talked about this a little off air, but like, I don't understand. Like, what's made him so, I guess, lovable before all this, for at least his teammates, was he was like the ultimate, like, he's just a great leader. Like, people loved playing with him.
Great dude.
I don't understand how you stand up in front of your teammates in the locker room when half those guys have daughters, like, and try and get them to play for you. Like, I don't want to block for this guy. I'd miss a block so someone hits him. Like, there's no... This is just such an obvious case of the NFL just goes, oh, he's not allowed to play until everything's settled, and then once it's settled, we'll figure out what his punishment is going to be. But for now, he's on the commissioner's list pretty much. And it just feels so easy. But they're just not doing it.
Yeah. No, I mean, you mentioned that. Like, I think, like, part of the unfortunate reality of the NFL is, like, there are going to be guys that are fun. They're going to play with them, and they're going to be happy about it, right?
Yeah.
I think from just the perspective of, like, the league they haven't really done anything yet. Mm-hmm. Right, in terms of this upcoming year. We mentioned, like, we talked about the contract offer, the $1 million base salary in the first year, which is a common thing for NFL contracts, but it's just so different in this situation where he's going to get punished, and, like, knowing that punishment is coming, and then you update the contract, right? I mean, for example, like, Davante Adams just got traded. His base salary is $3.5 million this year. By the end, it's going to jump up to, like, 35. Yeah. But it's such a different situation. Mm-hmm. When you have that punishment coming, and as you said, it shields him from it.
There's doing that, and then there's designing it around the possibility of suspension. And we can kind of get into what it means on the field, but Peter King mentioned on the herd that there's the possibility that the league actually lets the civil cases lets the civil cases play out this year, doesn't suspend him for year one, waits till year 2 when his money jumps up to $47 million in base salary next year, and then slaps him with an 8-game next year. Yeah, it's going to sting the Browns and Deshaun Watson a lot more. But
I feel like you could just put him on the exempt list in the meantime, right? And I think you were even saying this before. It's like, unfortunately, the reality is, like, the NFL is going to do what's best for its business, and, like, having him on the field for the Cleveland Browns and having people, unfortunately, like, just drawn to watching them, like, that's better for them than having him out for the year.
I think Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson is the most hateable quarterback room of all time.
But the thing, and I hate to get into all of this stuff that's kind of outside of what we'd like to talk about in terms of just the field stuff, but you're not wrong at all. But it's so hard for me just to wrap my mind around that there are comparable levels of hate for these two players. And you're absolutely not wrong. Baker Mayfield has never done a thing besides be disrespectful to an opponent a couple times. Or be a loudmouth, or be cocky, right?
Right.
As a human being, he's never been in trouble. He had, the one police incident because he was drunk in college? I mean, you could just pick a name out of a hat.
He got fined for the horns down incident at one point, I believe.
Yeah, I mean,
but
for you, that might be a deep dig. But even another guy you bring up with stuff like this is Odell Beckham Jr., who gets a massive amount of hate, and the worst he's ever done was maybe do some drugs with someone in Paris or something. But he's never been in never gone to jail, never committed a crime.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, but aside from that, he's kicked a kicking net
and then he hugged it. Remember?
Yeah.
Has
Has he been a bit of a diva on the field? Sure, but for whatever reason, fans and people will come after players with such venomosity. LeBron James is another one for deciding to go to Miami and making an event out of it, which actually benefited a charity. That certain people will go after players with such venom. And then players like Deshaun Watson or Ben Roethlisberger or Tyreek Hill, right? We could go a whole thing into that. Will slide by because they can just ball out on the field and people are willing to just wipe it clean.
And then you just are off the field issues aside, yada yada yada.
Yeah, and I understand that in sports, and especially in football, it necessitates a little bit of separating the art from the artist because, and you mentioned it, there are characters like this. There will never not be characters like this. There are characters like this in the 80s, 90s, 2000, right? It'll keep happening. But when it happens and when the situations come up like they have now, it's hard to not point out and notice how unfortunate it is that this is the dynamic that we face as a league's fan base.
Hell, Karl Malone's been out of the league for 20 years, and now is finally the time when people are oh, this guy was kind of a terrible human being.
Yeah. And then I just got one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, while we're at it, we talked about this earlier at dinner. I think it bears being mentioned for as many people that can hear it. But the NFL, Andrew, you just mentioned, is all about the bottom line. And in terms of the bottom line, the Deshaun Watson case on the field is not going to hurt it. If anything, it may help it because people will tune in to see how this plays out on the field and what he can do in Cleveland. And the sad part is that in order for a player like a Deshaun Watson who based on, and they are allegations, it's worth mentioning, right, that we do work in a legal system where you're innocent until proven guilty. But it's hard with 22 allegations not to assume guilt in some sense. So, but even if we're not talking about Deshaun Watson, we're talking about Roethlisberger, we're talking about Tyreek Hill, other guys where things have been proven that they've done some pretty horrendous things off the field, that in order for them to be blackballed out of the league, and that's with the union and stuff, that's what it would take. They'd have to be kind of pushed out by the owners with quote-unquote agreement not to sign them. For that to happen, the bottom line and the ratings would have to be impacted in some way, and the fact of the matter is they're not, because people will still tune in to watch them. They'll still tune into the narrative. But the one time we have had a player get blackballed out of the league for behavior outside of the football field was a player stepping out on his own to protest police brutality and racism and inequality in America, and that was obviously Colin Kaepernick, who has never played another snap since the season in which he did that. So I think that unfortunate reality bears being mentioned because it says a lot about where we are as a overall league fan base and where we are as a society, that's what did it. And it legitimately did it. There were reports that the owners were worried about losing a significant amount of their revenue from lost ratings because players people were so disgusted by this hideous act of peaceful protest that they wouldn't tune into a sport while they're tuned in to watch rapists and child abusers run around and tackle people. So I know this is kind of heavy and this isn't a lot of the stuff we like to get into on the show, but I think it needs to be mentioned. I think it's important. So
all right,
to get it out there.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about Matt Ryan, and then we'll get into the AFC West.
Let's go. Good guy we can talk about.
Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
And Carson Wentz.
Oh, boy.
Okay, let's go. Let's get into Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, as we like to call him, going to the Colts.
How did he get that nickname? He's not clutch. I love Matt Ryan. Great guy. Solid yard.
I think his clutch stats are like weirdly really good.
Yeah, but they're like
See,
good
but
in the
he-
way Matt Stafford.
But here's the thing. It's like no matter how good his clutch stats
Yeah.
are, it does not matter when
Nope.
you blow that game. It just
I saw
just
something
doesn't
about it
matter.
the other day. I think it was because it's 328. I feel
Yep.
so bad for him.
Oh, no,
like-
because the Celtics have a two-way guy named Matt Ryan who suited up for his first game last night. He didn't actually play, but he was active.
Oh my god.
People immediately when Ryan got traded to the Colts were like, man, if they just waited a week. Oh, if they just waited a week to 328. I think it's a great move for the Colts.
I do too. I
think it's a great
I
move
loved
because you're worried about like part of the reason they moved on from Carson Wentz. Obviously, he just was not a very good quarterback. He was okay this year. He's probably late. He actually may have been slightly better than people thought until he
was
just
decent,
melted down
but
at
he's
the end.
so up and down.
And he just melted down in
Matt Ryan is
Jacksonville at
much
the end.
Steadier.
So there's that, and then there's also they weren't thrilled with Wentz's leadership. I mean, Matt Ryan's a veteran quarterback. He's led a team to a Super Bowl. He's won an MVP.
Yeah.
I don't think you have anything to worry about there. So
Jim Irsay came out today. Did you see this?
no,
And he was like, "Yeah, we traded Carson Wentz for obvious reasons. It was bad."
yeah,
What else can you
we
say?
blew the game to Jacksonville in Week 18
We
and
lost
missed the playoffs.
Oh man, we might have to have a little talk about the Urban Meyer thing before we leave. It's just too much fun.
At the
And
very
sorry,
at
it
the
just made me
very end.
think
That's
of
the
it,
very
yeah.
that's a very end thing.
I'm with you, Andrew. I love the move for the Colts. I felt like with what Frank Wright wants to do and how the team's kind of built, especially now that you added Jonathan Taylor in, that I thought Phillip Rivers
Yeah.
was a good fit that year, and he stepped away, rightfully so. I
Yeah.
think he was kind of at that point, but you now get a very Phillip Rivers-like quarterback, slide him right in. He's going to be around for a few more years. I think he has plenty
Yeah.
of gas left in the tank, and not a Super Bowl contender because of what we're seeing with quarterbacks
Right.
around the league, but for the Colts and for what was available, we were all thinking Jimmy G or maybe now Baker with what's happening in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best kind of decent bridge holdover pocket
He's,
guy.
by the way,
you
he's,
can
he's
get.
the best quarterback in the division.
Absolutely. Yeah. Him or Ryan Tannehill.
I've always liked
It's not
when
Ryan
teams,
Tannehill.
It's not Ryan Tannehill.
I've always liked when teams bring in veteran talent to kind of help assist the transition to maybe the Sam Ellinger era.
Oh my god.
We might say.
Oh,
The
boy.
Sam Ellinger, literally, I think that's
I-
what you
I
texted
think-
us when
Yeah.
he got traded. You're like,
In
guys,
fact, I think
right
he-
now,
I think-
Sam Ellinger's
I
the
think he
starter.
just ended the Sam Ellinger era.
Hey, it's all fun.
I
and
think the
games
book has
until
been closed.
until Sam beats him out in training camp.
If he beats him out in training camp, something has gone horribly wrong with Matt Ryan. The one part about them is their receiving core isn't great. Like they have Pittman, who's good,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Their weapon
And he looked good
their
with
weapons-
Carson Wentz, so he might be great.
So their weapons are. That's like the one thing I think you would worry. If they had better weapons, I think they'd be talked about a lot more as a division favorite even.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
I think I personally have them as the favorite now, but I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think
I think
It's still tough
it's just
with
kind of a
Tennessee.
I feel like it's a toss up right now with Tennessee.
Derrick
They're just-
Henry's coming back,
Yeah,
but
just more established.
I agree with you on that point. I don't know what they did with T.Y. Hilton, but either way, he's a shell
Yeah,
of
it
what he
feels like he
once
hasn't
was.
played in a couple years.
Zach Pascal, who was their oft-injured draft pick from a few years
Paris
ago.
Campbell, same
Yeah,
similar
right.
situation.
So a lot of guys have moved on. I mean, great move. The team still has some work to do. They draft very well. They got back 2/3 for Wentz and gave up a third for Ryan. So they still netted draft capital in the
Yeah.
quarterback transaction, which is really hard to do to upgrade your quarterback and actually get back more than you give up.
Yeah.
That's
I
impressive.
think that says something about what Washington gave up. But,
Yeah.
That was a lot.
It
Yeah.
was a lot.
Unfortunately
And paying the contract.
for Indy, the one thing is his contract is ugly right now.
It's true.
But
That right?
that's what the quarterback. Yeah, that's what the
Quarterback
quarterback
is
market does.
You're,
right now.
I think they're in a situation where they have a good enough team to be competitive right now and to push for the playoffs, but they also need to find a long-term guy.
Yep.
But because you're competitive, like you should be willing to spend however much money it is for Matt Ryan,
exactly.
right? Like you can look for another upgrade next offseason, but like you're
And
not going to get
the
anything
deal
better
doesn't
now.
cripple you down the line. It hurts a little right now, but right.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of some other quarterbacks, Jimmy G still out there. Baker's still out there.
Baker's now hot on the market and trying to make noise about it, but I don't know if he's working.
Yeah.
I thought the really interesting thing was when he put out that statement. It was a couple days before the Watson trade. It was also like a day before he requested a trade, and it all got really jumbled up in there. I think I'm surprised more teams haven't taken a look at him.
I am too.
because he's his fifth year. So is it the fifth year option or is it just,
It is the fifth year option.
Fifth year
I
option.
think he's worth $19 million this year.
right? Which is not that much
quarterback,
for a
it's not
starting
much.
quarterback anymore. There are teams that need Seattle needs a quarterback. The Panthers have already been said to not want him, but they need a quarterback. Like
I think
he's young, he still has potential.
I've got a trade proposal.
Okay,
All right, let's hear it, and then I'll make my point.
Straight up. DK Metcalf for Jimmy.
I would love to know why the Seahawks are doing that.
Yeah,
Because they don't have a quarterback. And they're rebuilding.
I mean,
but that's one of the guys
you
they're
could
gonna
get
wanna
draft
rebuild
picks.
around.
You could get draft even if you want to trade, you get draft picks.
And Jimmy G's not really a rebuilding quarterback.
Okay, let's try again. What if it's Tyler Lockett for Jimmy straight up?
That could make more sense because
I think the contracts work better that way.
I don't
too.
think that's how you would.
I don't think that's how they're going to get quarterback.
Probably net more for Lockett in the draft
Jimmy
market.
Jimmy
than
G
Yeah, that's
Jimmy
fair.
G is the
especially with the wide receivers right now.
we can compete if we have at least a league average quarterback, and so we're going to go get this guy who's very obviously available.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it would make more sense for Seattle to go get Baker, because Baker feels like more of a longer term option potentially.
So
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not trading Tyler Lockett for either of those guys.
I feel like Baker and Pete Carroll just don't mesh.
I personally think I don't think that's a good situation for either side.
Yeah.
The thing with Baker and what's tricky is the Jimmy Garoppolo thing is he's quite a bit more talented. He's scaring people off because of the injuries. But I think Jimmy, honestly, what we end up seeing play out with him is someone gets hurt late in the summer or the offseason process. And, again, it's a contending team.
Yep.
I don't know why Pittsburgh doesn't kick the tires on him right now with Trubisky. You just let him go in and battle it out. What's going to happen? You hurt Mitch Trubisky's ego?
It's because Mitch Berg sounds a lot better than Jimmy Berg.
Jimberg?
Jim Berg's not bad.
Jimberg's not bad.
Jim Berger.
No.
No, Jimberg.
Anyway, so the thing that I think makes Baker in a really tricky spot right now is I disagree with you, Andrew. I don't think he's he's pretty talented, little feisty, right? And he is relatively young, especially a quarterback, but I don't think teams are viewing him as a long-term option.
Yeah.
I think they're viewing
I'm
him.
not necessarily saying long-term option. I'm just saying you have him for this year, and you can re-sign him and have him act as a bridge guy.
That's fair.
Right?
That's
I'm talking 2
Yeah.
to 3 years. Whereas Garoppolo, it feels like every year he's about to get moved. And sure, he hasn't been moved yet from San Francisco.
That's
but
fair.
there's every year they want to get rid of him.
I feel like Baker could be good in Carolina. Right? It feels like
I'm surprised they don't want him.
It feels like Carolina's tried every style of quarterback. Right? They've gone with the just pocket presence, just like I'm going to only throw the ball 10 yards in Teddy Bridgewater. They went with the ultimate wild card in Sam Darnold. They went with the somehow larger wild card with Cam Newton.
Yep.
Right? They had P.J. Walker at one point who just slings the ball.
So-
right? I feel like there's only one more type of quarterback left, and it's the type of quarterback that no one knows what they are, and I think that's Baker.
So I don't disagree personally, but I think, and I think this goes for Seattle too, I think there are the stages where you're in complete contention, right, and you need to plug in a guy, and that's a little bit trickier. And then you're in the good kind of competitive area where Teddy Bridgewater you'll see get picked up a lot, a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Baker Mayfield. And then if you're bad enough and you don't view the guy as a long-term rebuilding project, and to re-sign him, Andrew, to your point, it's probably going to cost you a fair amount of money. I think there are some teams who have a terrible quarterback situation, a terrible roster, like Seattle and Carolina. Carolina's a little better, where they're just okay with having trouble at that position until they draft the guy they think is going to be the long term, which is why I think Malik Willis is now officially on QB. I think Carolina and Seattle at 6 and 9 are on QB watch in the draft. I think it would be a bit of a reach, but Malik Willis's stock is growing and growing. As we knew this would happen. Teams always fall in love with the quarterback. I think those situations both scream more to me. We're ready to draft our guy. You don't always have to have a good situation to draft a quarterback into, as evidenced by what Jacksonville just did to Trevor Lawrence. So I think those teams they did such a teardown. Carolina's a little more advanced in the rebuild back up. Seattle's at ground zero, that they're more ready for just the young kid. We're going to throw him in. We're going to see what happens, and we're going to just build up from there. We're not really interested in the bridge quarterback because we have no prospects for competing in the meantime. And I don't think anyone sees Baker as a good veteran mentor for a young guy.
I feel bad for Malik Willis if he goes to Carolina. Not because it's a bad situation, but he's in a place where his coach is literally relying on his performance to keep his job. Right? Like, if that doesn't work, that Rule's run out of excuses.
Yeah.
So, that's
I
a lot.
think it's a decent situation for him, though. I agree.
The actual situation is good.
Yeah.
They've got a great defense, right? He's got one of the best prolific running backs in football.
DJ Moore just got re-signed.
Exactly.
Robbie Anderson's still there. They have good young talent on each side of the ball.
No, it's a good personnel situation. It's just a lot of like external.
There's also the thing of like if he doesn't play his first year, right, or if he does and he's a rookie and Matt Rule gets fired, it's a new head coach the second year, new offensive coordinator. They might not like him as much.
Like Matt Rule's, he's gonna say his priority is to win, but his priority is to keep his job.
Also, I think that's also the reason why you have to put Carolina on QB watch here is because guys who are desperate to keep their jobs do desperate things.
That's
like
why I'm so surprised they just shot down the Baker stuff immediately. It wasn't like there were rumors about Baker to Carolina. It's more like, oh, Carolina needs a quarterback. And like we're not going for Baker.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
That was surprising to me because it's like, look at the guys you have right now. Look at like if you're gonna bring Cam Newton back, right? Like those are the guys you're gonna go with.
Yeah.
Real quick, Seattle, they kept talking about let Russ cook, let Baker bake. Let Baker bake.
That's a good one.
All right.
I hate that.
Oh no, you know you love it. All right.
Do you like that?
Yeah, you like that.
You like that one.
Like Kirk Cousins.
Yes, sir.
You like that. Let's talk about the AFC West overall because that division it's the greatest I saw a tweet about this. It's the greatest quarterback division since the year that Brady and Peyton Manning were both in the AFC East.
Wasn't Brady still behind Bledsoe?
Yes, he was. Hey, all I know is the Colts went like 5-11 that year. So in the 1 year Brady and Manning were in the same division, Brady doubled them up.
And Bledsoe.
Don't
discount.
That's true.
How different NFL history might look if that division change hadn't been made. Just legitimately.
Yeah.
Brady lived off that first round bye.
Quick side note. I was going through the divisions that year, and they were all messed up. It's like the Cardinals were in the NFC East.
Really?
Yeah, and like teams in the Southeast would be in like the Western divisions. It was way messed up at that point because I think they just kept adding expansion franchises to wherever they could. Anyways, but let's talk about the AFC West.
Yeah.
It's loaded. 3 of the greatest quarterbacks in the league, plus Patrick Mahomes. It's a loaded division.
Oh, you had to throw it in there.
I had to throw it in there. I actually think Patrick Mahomes is very good. I want that to be stated because I don't want to come off like an absolute biased Patriots fan. So, but I think, to me, Chargers are winning this division.
You've been on that for a while.
I was on it before they got Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson.
We got to give you credit for that because you were on it, and then they keep giving you the opportunity to double and triple down.
Yep.
So we'll get to winners and losers in a bit, but the Chargers have done very well this offseason. Kansas City, we talked about earlier with the trade. I kind of love it and hate it, but
yeah.
I mean, it's tough for this year, but would you be surprised if Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster just are good role players and they are back to where they were?
Well, I was about to say, I mean, it can look rough all at once. I'm going to be freaking 6 feet under when I start betting against Patrick Mahomes, man. They're still winning that division. They're still going right back to the Super Bowl where they belong. Took a hiatus. Got a little bored. Let Joey B have his one run so he can have his Dan Marino Hall of Fame claim. They'll be right back to it.
The scenes when Joe Burrow just goes into Kansas City again this year. And just breaks Chiefs fans' hearts again.
Juju Smith-Schuster doing a TikTok with the Lombardi Trophy is going to be an all-timer.
Now, underrated thing for the Chiefs this year is him saying he's not going to do TikToks raises their championship odds. Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
The only thing that could have potentially deterred them was the Jackson Mahomes.
No, like
Juju
that was actually the one
TikTok.
thing that was going to determine their Super Bowl chances. Was if that happened, they're missing the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
But because he's not doing TikToks, they have a fighter's chance.
Far more concerned with this opinion before I saw Juju denounce Jackson Mahomes in his TikTok. As soon as I saw that, I texted you guys. I'm like, hammer Chiefs Super Bowl odds right now. Like, they're fine. So, but it is all time. I mean, the division winner could have like 11 wins and be the best team in football. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it is brutal.
Well, this is the thing. Like, there could be a chance it's like the top two teams are tied, and the teams right behind them have one fewer win, but they're right there, and they all go like 3-3 in the division more or less.
Yeah.
And they kind of like this is the one thing where you were talking about the playoffs. Like, I think there's a chance that two of those teams are really good teams, and you look at them at the end of the year and be like, they could be Super Bowl contenders, right? If it's like the 3 or 4 seed, but they're sitting there fighting for a wild card spot because they're 9-7 heading into Week 18, just because they've had a brutal schedule.
Yeah, I think this could go one of two ways. The first is those 4 teams just beat each other up so much that they just whatever's remaining of them at the end just crawls into the playoffs, and then just like they just run out of steam. Or they have so much experience in big games that they just roll through the playoffs. And I think it'll be difficult for it to be anywhere in the middle of those two extremes. But like I can't predict what's going to happen.
I think a sneaky benefactor in this, it's hard to say because these teams are still in conference, but Buffalo probably sleepwalks through the East.
Yeah.
Gets that first round bye, which is going to be critical. Teams are now going to Buffalo. And those teams get to just beat
Mac
the hell
Jones
out
went
of each
into
other.
Buffalo and won.
It's true.
He did.
He also then went in and lost.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
We've just totally switched sides.
Yeah,
right
what
there.
just happened?
I think another interesting thing, and this is kind of just a wild thing to think about in terms of the AFC right now, is let's say hypothetically that the NFL chooses not to punish Watson this year, and he plays in Cleveland. I think we'll look good with him. I mean, they got Cooper, they got the line, they got Chubb. I mean, you go Burrow, Watson, Lamar, Mahomes, Allen, Wilson, Carr, and Herbert.
Mac Jones and
But what I get out of here. But what I was going to say is, out of those 7 or 8 guys, one might miss the playoffs altogether. Yeah. More than likely 2, because there's always a couple teams.
You say Russell Wilson?
I did say Russell Wilson. Well,
but that's the
top
point.
7 guys in the AFC, right? That's not anyone in the South. Someone's got to make it out of the South. So one of those guys is missing it, and then 3 of those guys aren't even getting to the second round. They're getting bounced out. 3 or 4 of those guys aren't even getting to the second round. It's just the quarterback talent in that division specifically and the conference as a whole. When's the last time we heard Lamar Jackson's name? He won an MVP 2
even
years
if you
ago.
think about it this way, where it's like 4 teams in one division making the playoffs feels really unlikely.
It does.
Right? And so you can just look at it as from the perspective of like Derek Carr, Russell Wilson right now is probably going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what all this will probably boil down to is 2 or 3 of these teams get knocked out because of injuries.
Yeah.
That's just the way the league works. So we won't get the actual like gladiator fight for the playoffs that we're all hoping for because a couple teams. I mean, Mahomes, when he popped his ankle out a few years ago and missed 5 games, they're dead in the water if that happens this year, right?
Absolutely.
You can't sustain a quarterback injury in the AFC right now and live to tell about it.
No. All right.
It would make you a loser.
All right. Let's finish off with winners and losers.
You're really on top of the transition.
Really on top.
We're really
I'm like
proud
4
of
for
you.
5.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good.
It's good solid.
Hey.
It's a B performance.
4 for 5.5 because one of them got called back.
Batting 800.
Yeah. Well, okay, he just moved it up to 5.5, so I'm not going to do the math. But
yeah, whatever.
That's just over 72%.
You win 80% of your games as a coach. You're a Hall of Famer.
That's true. All right, Sam, big winner of the offseason.
Derek Carr, like, what a guy. He finally gets it going his way. Like, I don't love his coach. I don't love Josh McDaniels, but, like, it's an offensive mind, and that's going to be good for him. He gets to play with his buddy in Davante Adams. He's got probably the best situation to be in if you're a quarterback right now. Now, his division isn't going to be fun, but he's going to get a hell of a lot of primetime games, right?
Yeah.
The Derek Carr love tour is going to commence. I think he just wins all the way around.
I saw something that was like, I think the first 8 weeks of Monday Night Football have an NFC West AFC West team in them.
As they should.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And then, just on your point with Carr, like, absolutely one of the big winners of the offseason. And also, like, we just had all this talk about questionable character in the league. Like, he's just, like, one of those guys that you can't – I mean, supposedly, like, I should hate him because he threatens my favorite player in his division, right? But, like, you can't – like, if Derek Carr won a Super Bowl, like, I just feel happy for him.
Yeah.
Like,
He says this
such a
until
good
Derek
dude.
Carr storms – actually, no. Mahomes would have to go to Vegas in the AFC title game and Derek Carr just drops 45. And
It was like when Stafford won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
watching the Chiefs-Raiders game, I think 2 years ago, and I had a friend who likes the Raiders, but not like a lot, but he knows how to get under my skin. If he's listening to this, he knows who he is. Just getting it. Just the Raiders were winning the whole game, and he's just pissing me off the whole game. And I'm like ready to swing on this kid just because just yap. And Derek Carr is absolutely balling out, and I'm just like furious with every completion. And then Mahomes does some like superhuman thing at the end, and I just go crazy. But it was like the one time I ever rooted against Derek Carr openly. It was an awful experience. I felt terrible.
Yeah.
man, must have felt like a slap in the face. Okay.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
All right. Mike. Oh, thank you, guys.
No problem.
Mike, big winner of the offseason.
It's a little out there. I gotta like phrase it correctly. All right, the big winner of the NFL offseason is directors of 7-on-7 football camps across America.
Ooh, that's
okay.
really good.
Okay.
Because every kid in America, every football fan, just saw the ceiling get blown off the wide receiver market. So every kid coming up, if you're not a quarterback, and there aren't many, every athlete is going to want to run routes and catch the football. So how are they going to do that? They're going to be like, I need someone to teach me how to do it. I need someone to throw me the ball. So they're going to go to trainers and coaches, and then they're going to register for 7-on-7 camps, which are very expensive, and then they're going to show up to those 7-on-7 camps. They're going to run their routes, and they're going to line the pockets of all the people running them. And on top of that, every wide receiver in the nation who's able to work his way up through this gauntlet of a system we have will eventually benefit when dudes are getting signed to $200 million contracts in 5 years, because what Tyreek Hill and Davante Adams just did for wideouts it's exactly what I said. It's the ceiling getting blown off.
Yep.
And it's not just Davante. It's one thing to have, like Mahomes had that crazy contract.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of a one-of-one because of who he is. But to have another guy come out immediately and say, no, I'm matching that, that is really what can kickstart our market. And then I kind of mentioned it earlier how receivers are being viewed in a different sense now. And I think teams are more comfortable with just signing them to $30 million deals.
Christian Kirk.
I was just going to bring it up. We joked about that being the big winner, but he is.
Yeah.
That's a third wide receiver, maybe an okay second, getting
$21 million a year.
$20 million a year. So
Guaranteed.
yeah. So
Christ.
I mean, I kind of obviously brought it down to the lowest level it is, but I think the wide receivers just in general are just massive winners from the offseason. All these kids getting drafted this year, if they can make it through their rookie contracts healthy and produce, they're looking at some big time money.
No middle school football players are going to want to be corners anymore.
No one's going to want to be corners. No one's going to be dude, why do you think in all seriousness, if you look at the draft right now, DBs are going high, wide receivers are going high, running backs have dropped off the map, right? Like there's a lot to that idea, and it's not just DBs, it's corners going high. You need guys to match up. Safeties have lost value in a lot of sense because they're not directly lined up on these extreme athletes. So the boundary positions on both sides of the ball in the NFL go up with each other because as the talent in one gets better. So, yeah, big day for the old wideouts.
You know who signed a corner this offseason? The Los Angeles Chargers.
They did.
J.C. Jackson. And when I said they were going to win the division, I saw they had a lot of cap room. I thought J.C. Jackson was a strong possibility. Then they go get Khalil Mack. They mean business. They mean business. They're winning. I've now tripled down on the Chargers winning the AFC West. And they have the quarterback. They have the weapons. They have defensive stars. And what more do you need?
They did their best Rams impression.
Now, the coach, we'll see.
I love Brandon Staley for that.
I like him. I think he's good.
I think they have the coach, but there's a lot of people
I think he's good.
Don't.
I think the thing, though, you look back to last year, it's like he had some bad moments last year. Like, how about week 18?
Analytically, it's going to even out at the end.
Of course. Yeah, the analytics, right? They'll even out at the end.
Real football men use manalytics.
Colin Coward's getting shouted out left and right
Yeah.
today. Manalytics.
Right. They're winning the division. All right, losers. This is way more fun.
Yeah.
Sam?
So I was going to have one, and then I decided to change it I think the biggest loser are NFL owners. I think the more and more it starts to replicate the NBA, the more and more power the owners begin to lose. And we saw that with a number of situations over the last year and a half. And I don't think they're going to be able to do anything to kind of swing it the opposite direction. So I think that pendulum's just going to keep swinging as far as it can go.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
I don't disagree that with the rise of superstars comes a little bit of loss of power for the owners. Mm-hmm. Now, I think their power is extreme enough that it'll take a while to really degrade at it, and stars aren't quite important individually as in the NBA. But do you think it could also help them in the sense that, I mean, we're into, almost April, and we've talked NBA one time because the NFL just doesn't stop. And this stuff just keeps that money train churning for them. Mm-hmm. So do you think it helps them in terms of increasing the popularity for the sport? Think about how many different teams we're going to want to watch just because we want to know how these storylines play out.
True.
I mean, two aspects to that. The first is, like, their perceived power might go down, but their financial power is shooting up.
It's true.
And the second part is a lot of these owners just suck, right? Like,
yeah, I heard a report today that John Mara is pushing the Giants front office to sign Daniel Jones to a long-term deal.
Well,
that
okay, so that's one level.
I had to get that off my chest. I'm really worried about it, guys.
I was thinking of the commander, the commies
situation.
Oh, they'd
be like terrible people.
Yeah,
they are
like
too.
But like, if you look at Houston, for example, their owners are like the most racist people on earth, and no one's talking about that anymore.
Half the league's owners are racist people.
Yeah,
like, I mean, just ask Brian Flores.
Yeah.
But, like, that's not what they're talking about. It's like, oh, good for Houston. They moved off this bad person. It's like, well,
Houston is a case study in and of itself.
2 years ago, they said we don't want the inmates running the prison.
Houston's like football Scientology, dude. It's unbelievable in there.
The thing about the financial is, like, the huge difference between the NFL and all other sports is that the revenue is split. And so you can be an owner for a small market team, but it's going to split at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you're the owner of, I don't know, the Portland Trailblazers in the NBA, you are not thrilled about everyone moving around. But in the NFL, it ultimately benefits your pocket.
Yeah.
Also, in the NBA, with a lot of these stars moving, you see them act out, and it affects them on the court. You don't see that as much in the NFL. Like, as much as we've gone after Rodgers, he still shows up, and sure, he loses in the playoffs. That's what he always does, right? Back-to-back MVP. He's still playing in all the games.
And a lot of great players have struggled in the playoffs. So
right, like
they're not holding out.
And when guys hold out, it's because they want a contract. They're not trying to skip town necessarily just because they don't like it there.
Yep.
So
there's no James Harden shenanigans.
Exactly. Mike,
so stupid.
Big loser. Big loser.
Big loser. Thought a lot about this. There's various directions you can go, but I thought I might as well enjoy myself during this segment. I wish Hank were here. Because the Dallas Cowboys are some big freaking losers this offseason. Look, now, did the team blow up? No. Will they probably win the division? They're favorites, probably rightfully so. I think Washington could have something to say. Maybe Philly.
I will add, they're also favorites to sign T.Y. Hilton.
No one cares.
Yeah, I'm not.
Well, that helps your case.
Thanks. So, the thing that I love about Dallas, so look, I can't help but kind of like Jerry Jones. But I also, hold on. Just because he's Jerry, like he's good for the league. He's funny. He's a character. I also deeply enjoyed the prospect of him being miserable, because they sold out, and to his credit, he sold out to win a Super Bowl in the last 5 years, and now the bill has come due, and now dudes are leaving. Randy Gregory's out, right? You have to trade Amari Cooper. You have to make all these moves.
Still got Zeke.
Because
has
I was
to keep
getting
Zeke.
to it. I was going to say, you're making all these moves because you got to pay a washed-up running back. So, regardless of if they sneak into the playoffs again or not, they are nowhere near a Super Bowl team. They're not sniffing Tampa. They're not even beating Green Bay, even if Green Bay doesn't add a wide receiver, right? They're not beating a few of the teams in the West. So
they might split with Philly this year.
Oh, absolutely they could. They're by no means a juggernaut, right? So, is Dallas a decent team? Sure, the bottom didn't fall out, but they went all in for a Super Bowl. They didn't even get close.
They were Super Bowl favorites 2 years ago.
They went out miserably. year after year, which I have just so thoroughly. It's just like a yearly Christmas present.
Exactly.
I mean, ask Stephen A. Smith, right? It's just like, because the hopes get so high and then they crash, and it's just like, it's probably how you guys are feeling about watching me go through this Lakers season. But, so it's been a joy to watch that, and then this is finally the offseason, I think, where we're starting to see the deterioration of the team as a whole. And it's no one's fault. I actually happen to think they managed the team well. They draft well. I think they've invested in positional value pretty well, but it's just too much money to keep the team together, so the team's kind of fallen off, and they are firmly out of the playoff picture. They will have another thoroughly disappointing season. They didn't do anything in the offseason to this point to improve their situation, which is why I have them a loser for this offseason.
Yep.
They're completely dependent on a draft that I am not convinced is very good and will produce a ton of impact players, so maybe they get one or two. Who cares? They're out of the playoff picture, or they're out of the Super Bowl picture. Their delusional fan base and delusional owner will think they're still in it, which will make it all the more enjoyable when they ultimately aren't, but they are certainly, I think, losers from the standpoint of they sat on their hands with significant resources, got worse, and the rest of the country will enjoy it.
All right. The biggest loser of the 2022 NFL offseason are the New England Patriots.
Hey, you signed your Brill Peppers.
It's about time.
It's the best signing of the offseason. I was so excited.
Isn't it the only signing in the offseason?
No, not quite. We got Ty Montgomery. We got Terrence Mitchell.
Ty Montgomery's still in the league.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Oh, man.
He's so back.
look out. Look out when he's returning kicks this year. The Patriots even lost Gunnar Olszewski to the Steelers. Like, that is like, it's one thing to lose J.C. Jackson, who's going to go get paid a ton of money to play corner for the Chargers, and to not replace him, like all that. Like, just the perfect encapsulation of the offseason is the all-pro punt returner going as the Steelers. But they just haven't replaced any. Like, the team was 9-4 last year, riding high, and then they just crumble.
I remember you being in a good spot at that point. And I was
Very good spot.
I was listening to you spew some Patriots propaganda.
I thought an AFC
knew.
Championship run was probable at that point.
I know you did, and I was sitting there thinking, well, they employ Mac Jones. We'll see how far that gets them.
Now, was Mac Jones great at the end of the year? No, but he was not even like the main issue. It was the defense mostly. Just the Bills went 2 straight games without punting. And then
Josh Allen took out 30 years of Buffalo frustration on that team in two games.
Then they let J.C. Jackson walk and replaced him with Malcolm Butler, that's the best signing of the offseason, because when they benched him versus Philly, no one knows what happened. No one's ever going to know what happened now. Although apparently it must not have been that bad, because
he's back,
they wouldn't bring him back, and they wouldn't be paying him $9 million
doesn't-
for 2 years when he was out of the league. And the coaching staff, by the way.
That's the
That's
biggest
the
disaster
thing,
to me.
That's
is
the thing to
coaching
me that
staff.
doesn't make sense. At least if they want to spew the whole salary cap stuff, and like we know the salary cap can be maneuvered in a number of different ways, and they have not been doing it this offseason. But the coaching staff, where Bill Belichick has decided to hand the offensive keys to Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. Now, if we go back about 5-6 years, Patricia's the defensive coordinator. Joe Judge is the special teams coordinator. Joe Judge is good at his job as special teams coordinator, for sure. Don't even get me started on the equipment guy from a Division III school. Now, Matt Patricia got absolutely embarrassed by the Eagles in that Super Bowl. Goes on to get a head coaching job.
One
Gets
of the
fired.
greatest play calls of all
He
time.
gets. I'm not even gonna. No. He gets fired. They bring him back, and they bring Joe Judge back, and Bill Belichick has the genius idea of saying, "What if I put them on offense? What if we let McDaniels go? What if we just let everyone on the offense go? Right? Their O-line coach left, I think, before last year. He's like a legend. Their running backs coach, same thing. I think he retired this offseason. I'm not sure if that's official or not, but it seemed like he was. So the entire, like, you're going to go over to the sideline for the offense, and it's just going to be Joe Judge and Matt Patricia running around. And then Belichick was asked yesterday, he's like, I don't care about titles. And then they're like, well, who's going to call plays? We won't be calling plays for quite a bit, actually. So,
That was really
like,
good.
That's
That was
not
really
a
good. That was
that's
really
not a
good.
bad Belichick.
Thank you. But the point is, like, it feels like the coaching staff is so disorganized. The defense was disorganized last year. Like, no one knows who was calling plays at any given point in time. And it's one thing to be like, oh, we have the salary cap, we signed a bunch of guys last offseason, etc. But it just feels like negligence what's going on with the coaching staff right now, too.
Yeah.
It's brutal. If Mac Jones does not take a leap this year, I put the blame squarely on Bill Belichick for not helping out, for letting McDaniels go and not replacing him.
Well, at least he has a lot of talent around him to help him flourish.
Well, Jonnu Smith was really good in year one, so I'm really excited to see what he can do. That's the other thing, too, is I think they're betting on the team being better. It's like the second year of like all the free agents. But it's one thing to be like, oh, Jonnu Smith is going to be better this year. It's okay, that's one guy. But they're like betting on everyone getting better, and that's just not going to happen.
And they signed a bunch of like B free agents.
Right, and they had to because they haven't drafted well.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that was ultimately not a bad decision because they just needed to fill out the roster.
Yeah.
And there was not one contract in there where you're like, oh, they're going to, like, this is going to really hamstring them down the line.
Yeah.
Like, is the Jonnu Smith contract great? No. But it's not the reason they can't sign guys this offseason, the reason they won't. So, all that said, they should still finish second in the division. That's still my expectation for the team. The only team that is definitely better than them is Buffalo. Because as much as we want to talk about Miami, the Patriots do have the coach and quarterback. They're better coach and quarterback than Miami. So they got the advantage there. And that said, they're also like the 10th best team in the AFC. If you were to rank them right now,
I was gonna say
they're borderline top 10. It's just the division where you have the Jets.
They might finish second in the division.
They can finish second in the division.
In the playoffs.
Yeah,
I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be shocked too. But again, it's like the whole AFC West thing.
I don't know if there's a team in the division that the Patriots sweep this year.
Oh, they sweep the Jets. They sweep the Jets.
Dude, they beat the Jets by like 40 every year.
Hey, Robert Saleh is a proven winner.
Not against the Patriots.
That was a joke. He's
I know.
Not a proven winner.
Good one. So I have one last. I have one last thing to add to this little winners and losers because I got a player that is both, and I'm going to explain why. Tua. Ooh. This season, an absolute winner. They've put one of the best offensive arsenals in the league around him. So,
Arsenal.
For the 2022 season, Tua Tagovailoa is an absolute winner, right? Legitimately put him in a great situation.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, I think he's a loser because I have no faith in him. I think the Dolphins very quickly realized this is not the guy, regardless of weaponry. And when he thus fails to live up to expectations, it is career-threatening because teams are going to look around and be like, well, how are you going to do any better than that? You have two guys that you can give the ball to behind the line of scrimmage, and they can go 80 yards and score. Why are you guys struggling?
The worst-case scenario for any quarterback is the best situation.
That's what I said about Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you had the coach that believed in him. Like, everyone tried to buy in.
Same with Jimmy.
Jimmy won playoff games, though.
Yeah.
Jimmy
Jimmy
won.
didn't underperform.
Yeah.
Just win, baby.
But now
just
we know
win.
exactly what Jimmy's ceiling is. Right? Like,
yeah, that's fair.
I mean,
That's
sure.
fair. But I think Carson Wentz is a more apt comparison
Yeah.
for what I'm trying to say in that
tough one.
he has the situation, he failed to live up to it like I expect Tua to, and it will ultimately be pretty damning on Tua once he does.
Underrated part about that for the Dolphins, too, is some of the reports when they got rid of Flores was that Flores wasn't in love with Tua, but the front office was, and ownership.
Flores pushed hard for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Hard
And
for
even
Deshaun
so,
Watson.
like I think we've talked about some previous episodes where that weird situation Tua's rookie year where they get to the bye week, Fitzpatrick's playing well, the team, they're going really well at that point, and the front office or ownership was like, hey, we want to get a look at Tua. And how did that end up going for them? They still almost made the playoffs.
But it threw a screw in their season.
Right. It did, and there were like multiple times where they had to bench him at the end of games for Fitzpatrick. It was just brutal. So that's another interesting part there, where it's a front office and ownership failure too if he's not good this year.
I've never seen a front office choose a scouting department over a head coach before, because that was what it seemed to be. It was the scouting department versus Brian Flores, and the GM was like, "Yeah, I trust my scouts."
Isn't the GM? It's Balky's in Jacksonville.
Oh, I forget.
Speaking of Jacksonville, thought we might have
Chris Greer.
Thought we might have a little fun before we got off air.
Urban Meyer's wife, biggest loser.
She was the biggest loser like 8 months ago.
I can't have.
I mean, when did she?
I
when,
had
no,
one
when
good
did
joke, and they cut it from the podcast because it was inappropriate.
When did they?
It was very inappropriate.
When did she meet Urban Meyer? Because that's when she was the
That's
biggest loser.
the biggest loser. So, I just thought we might enlighten our audience on the latest of the Urban Meyer fraud show allegations. So, apparently...
Oh, I haven't heard this.
Oh, really?
You probably have once he says it.
Okay, so so remember, he got the job because he had taken a year off from college, and he goes to the owner and he's like, I've been studying the league, I'm up to date on how it's operating, what kind of the new trends, yada, 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 right? Apparently, he walks in to his coach's meeting the week they're playing the Rams, and he says, hey, so who's this 99 guy? I think he might be a problem for us.
And it's like,
I'm dead serious.
No, and
There's no way that's
on the one part you want to be like, oh, he must have said it sarcastically, right? But you can't rule anything out with that guy.
Well, the thing that's really funny is I saw something on Instagram that was like, had that heading, and then it was like a video of Aaron Donald getting one-on-one blocked and him sacking Trevor Lawrence. And it's like, but apparently that wasn't the only player he did that with. He did it with Deebo Samuel, he did it with Donald, and he did it with some other big name. But he walked in and was like, yeah, so who's 99? The best player in the sport. He might be a problem. Thank God he at least thought he might be a problem. At least he could see that. I mean, an 8-year-old could see that. But and then there were all kinds of other stuff. He let Tebow keep using the facility for like 2 weeks after he got cut.
He did.
There was like a Tebow Tuesday
the
thing
whole-
where like he let Tebow do some like crazy thing with the team. Like gave Tebow.
Is that true, or is that like ball sack sports? 'Cause
I thought it was true.
I don't
was
know.
it ball sack?
I don't know if it was ball sack
I might have
sports or
got-
not.
Did I get
Ball
sacked
sacked on there.
Did I get sacked? You know what? It's worth it to just go after Urban Meyer. But then the other one that was not, that is definitely true, was Trevor Lawrence and John Brown, one of his wide receivers, were working out after practice because John Brown had missed a route during practice and they were running it after. And Urban Meyer like walks up to Trevor and he's like, "Hey Trev, like you might want to slow these routes down for these guys. A lot of these Southern guys, their transcripts are lacking, as in." These Southern football players are too stupid to understand what's going on. Like, it's just like story after story. It's comical. Like,
Isn't Trey? He's Southern.
yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's from Georgia.
Yep.
He went to Clemson. But
Hey, you know where Urban Meyer coached football?
Florida.
Florida.
with a bunch of criminals.
And Tim Tebow.
I can't. The fact that it was Urban Meyer, 30 guys who got arrested, an abusive coach, and then, like, Tim Tebow, the choir boy, like in the middle of that is so funny.
When I was at home over break, like my parents would just have like whatever TV station on during the day, and I was just sitting there eating lunch, and Rachel Ray is on, and she starts talking about this like great guy that she's about to have on. He's like friend of the show, and she goes Tim Tebow. I started laughing for like 2 minutes. Like I don't know why, but it was just like Tim Tebow, guardian angel, can't play football.
He is such a good guy. Like,
No, he is. But the funny thing too was, part of it was like a baseball player. He's been a He's been a football player, a baseball player. I'm like, what? Tim Tebow.
he's a phenomenal analyst. But,
He is.
yeah, so the whole Urban Meyer thing, I mean, it just gets funnier. Like, we're going to get more stories, I'm sure, as we go along. But I think we talked about it. Obviously, we weren't doing the show yet, but when he got fired, that it was one of the most embarrassing or worst coaching careers in NFL history.
It might be the worst.
When they hired him,
that's
I
what-
thought it was just a disaster, the hiring.
But that's what I'm getting at, Sam, is I think that the more we hear about it, like, it's one thing to be bad and to be incompetent, but this is flat out fraudulent in the way he's behaving around professional athletes and treating the sport that he apparently was qualified to coach. So,
Kicked his kicker.
I mean,
Kick the kicker.
when Trevor Lawrence is coming out, man, feels so bad. for him.
Watch Trevor Lawrence this year just light it up.
I hope he does.
I hope he does.
I really do. Because like it could be so exciting to interject him into this QB conversation, but while he's in Jacksonville, I just don't know that he'll ever have the stability to get up around a Mahomes, Allen, or Burrow and get in that conversation. So we'll see.
All right.
But,
Sam, any final thoughts?
Is this like the Sam closing take, or is this like on
yeah.
the topic?
you get this.
Anything you
closing,
want.
Yeah, like you get
Anything
the
you
closing,
want.
Like
I'll go with the Sam closing take.
a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've tried one. Let me adjust my microphone.
We're allowed to respond to this, right?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So, I think this current iteration of the Rams, so like the Stafford, the Sean McVay, even Sean McVay's on a monster deal. I think as soon as Stafford retires or leaves or however this ends, Once that happens, we don't hear from the Rams for a decade.
This is Stan Kroenke, or how do you pronounce it? Kroenke?
Kroenke.
I was going to say, does this not have
Kroenke
anything does that have anything to do with your love for their owner?
Arsenal,
Oh, no.
the pride of North London, are now 4th in the Premier League and only looking better. I think the starting 11, the age is like an average of 23, 24, and that's only because Thomas Partey and Alexander Lacazette are old.
Naturally.
Lacazette's going to be out of a contract at the end of the summer. And rumors are we're looking at Lautaro Martinez for $60 million. It's a lot of money.
Dude, I know that guy.
Right?
Yeah.
Or Timo Werner was just made available from Chelsea if they're willing to sell to
Timo?
Timo?
Oh.
To an inter-Premier League rival. Bukayo Saka is 22.
All right, get to the point.
Okay.
They're all making a lot of money, and they're
Yeah.
all really young.
Yeah.
Stan Kroenke doesn't have unlimited money. In the past, Arsenal's had a bunch of old guys on essentially minimum salaries. That doesn't exist in soccer, but that's
Yeah,
the
but
idea.
cheap. There we go.
Cheap salaries. The Rams have flourished in this time. Now the turntables, right? Arsenal, young, prospering, good. The Rams, kind of older. He's hit their goal with them. He got handed his Lombardi trophy. What more does he have to prove? I think it flips. I think
So you think it's going to go
So-
from the Rams being the favorite child to Arsenal getting all the
Yeah.
pamper?
Now, one thing I will say.
he put his son in charge of Arsenal. His son's loving it.
Now, here's my.
He spent $150 million on Arsenal last summer.
When are these guys up?
Like, for contract?
Yeah.
2025?
Okay.
Now, here is my rip into the Rams take, presented by nobody. This week, there was a report that the Rams were interested in Bobby Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Wagner was interested in the Rams. You're like, that's probably a done deal. Bobby Wagner's asking for $11 million.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams say that's too much.
Can I tell you why it's too much?
Go ahead.
Because that money's already allocated towards the Lautaro Martinez fund for July 1st.
Now,
First days available.
this is like how the Red Sox don't pay Mookie Betts and then buy the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Exactly.
Or how the Celtics can't go over the luxury tax and then Steve Pagliuca buys a European soccer team.
Newcastle United's owner once sold their best player and then immediately bought a Dick's Sporting Goods of England. It's a true story. They were very unhappy.
But like for all this talk about the Rams, they go all in. They go all
Yeah.
in. They get Bobby Wagner, who's a generational talent at linebacker, and like 1 year, $11 million is too much.
Because they went all in.
So we'll see. I don't think it's a done deal. He's
No.
still on the market. I would actually still hedge a bet towards them figuring it out with them. But I agree with you. That's kind of
But like that being the report
is
is
off
just
brand for them.
it's one thing if it's like, oh, a guy wants a bunch of years, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
we don't want to pay you for that long, but
Yeah.
like if you have a championship team
Fair
now,
enough.
so
But my thing is, dude, it's like, what's Stafford, 37, 36? No, he's young.
no, he's like
34.
33,
Yeah.
34.
Yeah. He just looks 80.
He's going to be around a while.
He is.
So don't get excited about him retiring. Kroenke.
So is the center back partnership of Ben White and Gabrielle.
All right,
That's exactly what I was
continue my
thinking about.
American football take.
Yeah.
I'm going to take all my chances talking
I
about
think-
some silence.
I think the argument that maybe McVay steps away after Stafford's done is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of realizing I may not be qualified enough to talk about your beloved owner and his mindset. So you clearly have more experience in that case. But don't expect the Rams to jump out of contention anytime soon, especially in the NFC with how it's looking. That's all I
I
would
think
say.
the biggest takeaway is Arsenal's here to stay. If we finish third, it's going to be a lot of money poured into that club.
When's the last time they won anything
You know,
significant?
FA Cup 2 years ago. Thanks
One
to
thing
a
I
brace
I
from
will quickly say.
now
It's
Angry
the
Striker.
FA Cup.
You know, there's like a bunch
When's
of
the
different
last time they would have won something that American?
Do you know what the
would
Premier
hear
League
about?
is?
Yes.
They won it in 2004, but are the only team to ever win it without losing any of the 38 games.
That's impressive.
It
But
is.
the Rams haven't been good between 2004 and 3 years ago.
They
Yeah.
were good enough to have a movie made about their quarterback.
From before 2004.
So he said,
Yeah.
I think he might have had ample time to nurture the soccer baby
We should have
and
wanted
then
the year Leicester won.
realize that the soccer baby was a loser.
No, that.
And
You know, what's
decided
really
to turn his
interesting is-
attention
Now we have
to
one of the best young
football.
minds.
What's interesting though is that the Los Angeles Rams are worth way more money than Arsenal.
Yes.
What's the money?
Well, according to from about 2 years ago, Forbes had Arsenal at about $2.8 billion.
But
from April 2021.
Okay, that's fair.
From February 2022, according to Forbes, so same source, Rams are worth $4.8 billion.
Yes, but the Rams also just spent $1 billion of that on a state-of-the-art stadium.
So
So he's going to spend all that money on the stadium and then ditch the team after a couple years?
Well, that's because he already built Arsenal's new stadium about 15 years ago.
Are they getting a new stadium soon?
No, we don't need one. We have the
It's a
Emirates.
shame. It's a shame.
It is a staple of North London. It's
All right.
actually off topic. One of the coolest things they did with the old stadium is they turned it into an apartment complex. So like the four walls of the stadium are the outer walls of the apartments, and then they made it like an open thing in the middle, and it's a garden, but it's where like the pitch used to be. It's pretty cool.
that is cool.
That does sound cool.
Um,
On that note,
So, hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
In 3 years, when all these young guys go sign bigger contracts elsewhere,
No, we're paying them bank. That's the thing. Like Thomas Party's making $350 a week.
Thomas Partey?
Yeah, I didn't even bring him up earlier.
yeah, but
That's
like,
$350,000.
aren't you gonna have to re-sign them to bigger deals?
There's no salary. There's no salary cap in soccer.
I know, but I'm telling you, when what you're talking about doesn't come to fruition, and
When there's
some
no
rank-
salary cap, the only excuse is the owners are cheap.
and when
Exactly.
the owner is cheap because his soccer team can't win jack,
We do win now. That's the thing.
you're fourth.
Did you win a
That's
championship?
really good.
Oh, it is.
Like top four in Champions League.
Okay, but are they going to win Champions League?
Hell no, we're not in Champions League right now. We're not in any European competition right now.
What are we talking
Oh my
about?
God, okay.
The Rams
On-
just won the biggest
on
sporting event
that
outside
note-
of the world. The
on
biggest
that
yearly
note-
sporting
Yeah,
event
and they
in the
can
world.
only go down.
Let's end it off there,
What if
guys.
they win it again?
Let's end it
That's
off
going
there.
up because you're repeating.
I'm going to protect you here, Sam. Let's end it off there. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week.
Thank God your bodyguard stepped in.
We might talk a little NBA next week. It's possible.
I just want.
I
We
don't
might
wanna-
switch it up
I
from
don't
the
wanna
NFL.
I don't want to be here for that.
Can we bring in a soccer?
Los
guest?
Angeles Lakers
No.
about to miss the playoffs. See you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this edition of Courtside. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment or review. We'd really appreciate it. We'll be back next week. Thanks, guys.